So welcome back. We're glad you're here with us. So this session is co-moderated by myself and Dr. Marani. And with us, we have a panel of experts who will be discussing the various topical aspects of around the value chain, and specifically this time they can also focus on the vaccine. So vaccine manufacturing in Kenya. So in our panel we have. I will just go through the list, and then they will self-introduce as they make their remarks regarding their scope, what they do, scope of the organizations, and vis-a-vis the subject matter topic. So we have Dr. Fred Sioi, who is the CEO of Pharmaceutical Board. We have Dr. Njeri Gitau, Senior Director, President's Delivery Unit. We have Mr. Buracha Adi, Manager at CanInvest, and I'd like to confirm if we have Abdi online. Adi, Mr. Buracha Adi, are you online? Okay, so we have Dr. Eunice Gathitu back with us from the Division of Health Products and Technologies, Ministry of Health. Then we have Dr. Samora Otieno, Health Leader at the UK Foreign Commonwealth Development Office, FCDO. Then we have Dr. Mokoni Jujira, Country Manager, Philips East Africa. We have Mr. Willie Sorine, and I apologize for the spelling on your surname. It should be S-O-R-I-N-E-Y. The chairman of the Kenya Association of Pharmaceutical Industry will also tell us what they do. And also we have Dr. Tim Theory, the president of Kenya Dental Association. So I want to start from my immediate left, and maybe just Dr. Daktari, you can tell us about yourself, your organization, what you do around the subject matter topic, and so on and so forth. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nyalita. My name is Dr. Mothoni Ntonjera. I'm the country CEO for Philips East Africa. Philips is a global company that's involved in providing innovative healthcare solutions globally. And in Kenya, we are a direct subsidiary of the Royal Philips. Our scope is essentially when it comes to provision of solutions around cardiology, diagnostic imaging, radiology, and also connected care. Connected care in this case referring to patient monitoring, where we have solutions around critical care, solutions around cardiology, which is of course image-guided therapy, and also digital solutions within the primary healthcare space. So we have been in Kenya for the last over 60 years, and globally over 130 years. Actually, this year we celebrate 130 years of Philips Healthcare. And one of our ambitious mandate or objective is to touch 3 billion lives per year up to 2030. And out of those lives, our target is to impact the lives of 400 million people in underserved communities. And in that scope, we also look at So in that scope, we also look at the entire spectrum of healthcare, where we come from healthy living, diagnosis, treatment, and also home-based care at the point of either rehabilitation or care within the home. One of the things that I want to emphasize is in provision of digital solutions, we also tailor-make our digital solutions around the healthcare landscape that we have. And the Kenyan office actually houses the Innovation Hub, which is our R&D hub for Africa, where we look at the healthcare problems that we have within our landscape, not just in Kenya, but also Africa at large, and then develop solutions around that. So of course, that speaks to the theme of today's discussion.
Yeah, thank you, Daktari. Yes.
Thank you, Daktari. Good morning, everybody. My name is Dr. Njeri Gitau, medical doctor, public health specialist, with expertise in health system strengthening, focusing on policy, regulatory reform, healthcare financing, and quality of care in Africa and other emerging markets. Currently, I'm a senior director at the President's Delivery Unit. I saw it mentioned earlier today as one of the key stakeholders. And basically, what we do at the President's Delivery Unit under the Executive Office of the President is to ensure that the President's development agenda is delivered on time, unlock impediments, and basically work with all stakeholders, mostly within government, state corporations, state departments, and of course the implementers. Of course, we are all aware of the Big Four agenda, health, manufacturing, which are key to our conversation today. And of course, there is food security and housing, all these contributing to the growth of our economy and Vision 2030. So basically, we are a seamless with the authority of the President's office to really go into all spaces and all corners to ensure that the 47.5 million Kenyans feel the impact of the policies and development projects that are being implemented. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ari. Good morning, everybody. My name is Dr. Samora Otieno. I head the health team at the British High Commission. As you know, the British High Commission has supported health in this country since before independence, and we continue to do that. Our interest really is to support the government initiatives as far as health is concerned, and basically the Kenyan population. Given the experience that we've seen with COVID, as has already been mentioned already, and the need for us to have homegrown solutions to our problem, that's a commitment that we take very seriously. And so, looking forward to the conversation this morning about how we can strengthen our healthcare to be able to offer sustainable solutions to our people. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Samora. We go to Dr. Sioi. Fred?
Good morning. My name is Dr. Fred Sioi. I'm the CEO of Pharmacy and Poisons Board. And the board is concerned with the regulation of the pharmaceutical sector and the practice of pharmacy. On products, we usually concentrate on quality, safety, and efficacy. It's a challenging job, and I think we determine most of what happens in the pharma sector. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sioi. Gapitu?
Good morning once again. My name is Eunice Gabitu, a pharmacist working in the Ministry of Health, Department of Health Products and Technologies. So I'm part of the team that is looking at policy development for health products and technologies, one of the WHO building blocks. And it is a mix of products. It's not just medicines, there are medical supplies, lab, radiology. So currently, as we are constituted, we are a small team, but we are looking to expand the scope, even in terms of technical expertise. And a lot of our role is touches on what other MOH divisions and departments do. So we work a lot with the strategic health programs, because each of them looks at products for certain diseases, but for us, we cut across regardless of the source of the commodity. And then we also have other institutions that we are working in close collaboration with, including PPP, KEMSA, National Quality Control Lab. As I mentioned in my presentation, we have a HPT supply chain strategy, which is a first for the country. We derived a lot of the content from the Kenya National Pharmaceutical Policy of 2012. So now the strategy looks at other products beyond medicines and looking at what strategic interventions we need to ensure that we have health products and technologies available. And thank you for this opportunity, even to share what you are doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Theory, maybe, and you can speak even around the HRH perspective and also from your perspective vis-a-vis the value chain and also specific for vaccines manufacturing.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Dr. Tim Theory. I'm the president of the Kenya Dental Association. I think easily one of the oldest associations in the country. We were founded in 1960, the 27th day of May. We are a welfare association that deals with dentists, dental surgeons, and dental specialists in the country, and one of the biggest in the region. Only South Africa beats us in Sub-Saharan Africa. Our membership is drawn from dentists, and we are about 1,426 of us as of last month, since the first dentist was trained in the country. So that gives you a picture of the low numbers that we have. Out of that number, about 896 are currently practicing. And out of that number, again, only about 400 are in public service. So that's less than 10 dentists for each county. We are key, as KDA, we are a key industry player in the oral health space, the dental space, closely interacting with our regulators, that's the Kenya Medical Practitioners and Dentist Council, Ministry of Health, our sister associations like KMA, PSK. We are members of KHF because we draw our membership and our interest also from the private sector. Globally, we also belong to the Commonwealth Dental Association and the World Dental Congress. That's the body that is in charge of all dental associations in the country. I'm glad to be here, and given the small brief I've talked about today, it goes to say what my previous speakers have talked into, and that is deficiencies in terms of especially training of I'll talk for doctors now and their involvement in this space. During tea time, we were saying the way we are siloed in terms of how we are trained. A lot of verticalization is happening, and I hope this panel will be able to bring out these issues and how we can innovate into manufacturing. Particularly for us, during the pandemic, we were able to send specialists from our association to be involved in the various teams that the government required to assess industry, manufacturing, the quarantine section, policy development, inspection of centers to ready them for COVID preparations. Recently, we conducted a vaccine inspection, vaccine center inspections, and our role still continues to expand in this space. Our strategies, our strategic plan is that we hope this association will be a leading association in the country in terms of setting precedence in the oral health sector, and we hope to be of service to Kenyans. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Theory. Mr. Sorine?
Thank you very much. I hope everyone can hear me well. And first of all, I'd like to thank the organizers of this meeting for the invitation to participate in this very important topic of how we can advance or accelerate vaccine manufacturing in Kenya. And I also would like to thank the audience and the participants in the meetings because we all seek to learn and to move forward. As mentioned, my name is Willie Sorine. I am presently the chairman of the Kenya Association of the Pharmaceutical Industry, abbreviated as CAPI. Now, CAPI is composed of pharmaceutical companies that are oriented to research development. There is a difference. There's a difference in the pharmaceutical players on the basis of, are they manufacturing self-researched and developed medicines to diseases, or are they copying and producing in bulk? Or both are important players, but I represent the sector that is involved in research, innovation and development of medicines, vaccines, and other medical solutions. And our role has come to prominence a lot more than in the past, especially with the outbreak of COVID. And this is the time people got to know names like Pfizer, previously very difficult to pronounce, is it Pfizer? But eventually you all got to know it is Pfizer. We got to know AstraZeneca, we got to know Moderna, we got to know Johnson & Johnson. These have been the front innovators in the COVID vaccines and actually rearranged the order of the world, and an important input into public health intervention. They are not the only members that we have in CAPI. We have other members who are also researching not just vaccines, they're also researching on medicines, because there will be a role that medicines have to play when vaccines are not either available or people have not administered or taken vaccines. Therefore, there will be a role of medicines in that. And our member companies are involved heavily in the research. You probably will find that most, if not all, the medicines you have on the shelves were researched and developed by members of CAPI. Now, our orientation is to partner with environment players like the regulators represented by Dr. Sioi, the government itself, healthcare providers, hospitals, to deliver these medicines and solutions to patients in an ethical, moral manner. This is what we strive for, preserving quality and preserving efficacy for the absolute best outcomes for the patient. Now, for this discussion, I will hold my opinion now until as we further down the road in the discussion to deliberate on, can Kenya manufacture vaccines? I would like to address that later. What do we need to do to manufacture vaccines? Given that I come from a background of many of our member companies having been in vaccine manufacturing for decades. It's not a technological position that Kenya cannot adopt. It's just a matter of the organizational ability of Kenya, and I hope to discuss that further as we go down the road. Thank you.
Thank you, Willie. There you go, our participants, our panel of experts you have had. I want to hand it over to my colleague to take on from there with the following questions that follow up to the introduction. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. I would like us to pick up from the last comments by Dr. Suine. And my question is actually targeted towards Dr. Sioi, because what we've been told is that it's not the technological capacity that we lack, meaning probably there are other factors that are hindering us from being able to manufacture our drugs. And you're now being told it could be queries about, can we manufacture even that vaccine? And this is in the backdrop of Kenya being the third largest exporter of drugs in the sub-Saharan region. Yet we are only using 25% of our, 50% of our manufacturing capacity. So the question is, what are the thoughts or plans by the Pharmacy and Poison Board to spur us to move away from a situation where we're having such a huge burden on importation of drugs, when it's other issues above and beyond just capacity to manufacture?
So thank you, Marani. First, let me say that, sorry, my light is going on and off, so my face will appear very dark. But let me begin by saying that I'm going to give an opinion. I have no scientific evidence, it is not empirical, but through the experience I've had over 30 years, I'll try to answer your questions. So the issue is, somebody has said we have capacity, yet we still import. So what happens with the local industry? Is it issues of a capacity, or are there any other issues? Well, let me say that the pharma industry has challenges, which I can group into 4. One is lack of a clear agenda or coordination across efforts. If you look, we already have the session paper number 4, which is the pharmaceutical policy of 2012. It gives some direction on how we'll do with our local industry. But then the implementation becomes another issue. And I think Dr. Katito had talked about it. When I talk to industry mostly, they say that they also lack access to finance. The finances they ask for are from commercial banks, and it takes about 8 years once somebody is manufacturing to recoup or to break even. So the banks are not readily giving the money. So access to finance becomes another barrier. The other one, especially for vaccines, I would say is the weak regulatory environments and challenging dynamics and also limited talent. I would say, yes, we have some capacity, but capacity in what? Do we have adequate numbers of skilled human resource to do what we need for vaccines? I discovered that in this country, we may have that capacity, but it's scattered. Yeah, you will get at the University of Nairobi as trained by technologists, by chemists. But then sometimes we don't have an inventory of these people. So we look at getting these people from abroad at a cost. Yet we have them. We've not done the mapping to know that there are people available within the country. I was even shocked one day that some factories have to pay for somebody to fly from UK to Kenya just to replace a bulb of an HPLC machine. And then when I was talking with the University of Nairobi, we discovered that those engineers are right here in the country, but we don't know. So we need something that will coordinate these efforts. We have the people everywhere, but everybody, they are not known. We are operating as silos. And the policy tried to attempt to coordinate these efforts, only that implementation has become a challenge. So let me say, Marani, that we are capable of doing this. Kevevapi already was doing vaccines for veterinary. It can be done, but then we need concerted efforts, coordinated in a manner that we don't need these imports to come here. And then there are those challenges that the accessory services, if you go to electricity, the cost of energy was very high. I hope now it's come down so that we were not competitive. We can produce the products, but are we competitive? Those are questions we need to ask ourselves. We started producing ARVs, but they were very expensive. And the market is globalized. So we get them from India, where they are cheap. It is not that we cannot make them here, we can. We can make snake venoms here, but our costs of productions are high. So we need to address those by having coordinated efforts through ministries. I think I'll end there first. If there will be further questions, I'll attempt to answer. Thank you.
I would like to have a follow-up question, and this goes to the ultimate convener of us all, and that is the Presidential Delivery Unit. It's amazing when you keep on hearing the same thing over and over and over again. We have the capacity, we have the people, we have the factories, but we just don't seem to be joining the dots. And this is not anything new. So from your perspective, what should we be doing? What can we do? Who is supposed, and what mechanisms can we use to bring these people together to join the dots?
Thank you very much, Marani. And I think Dr. Sioi and Dr. Katito talked about it. And one of the things they talked about was the multi-stakeholder engagement in moving the needle, as it were. And I'm happy that we had the COVID pandemic. One of the things that the COVID pandemic really brought out for the health sector, and something that we've always advocated for, is that one, we need a whole of systems approach, looking at the entire health sector as not as a single entity. So for example, now we are looking at the pharma industry, but it requires a lot of other inputs, which we've all spoken to at length this morning: human resources for health, healthcare facilities where these vaccines going to be given through, community healthcare workers, and then what are the other auxiliary services that need to bring this to bear. So if you looked at the COVID vaccine manufacturing committee setup, it's not just the health sector. Yeah, it brought together other players. And I'm sure somebody wondered, why is Ministry of Defense there? Why is Ministry of Interior, Internal Affairs, Interior there? Because we are talking about vaccine manufacturing. We are talking about something for the entirety of the population of Kenya. It's a biosafety, biosecurity issue. We're going to partner with not only local manufacturers, but with other manufacturers. So how do we secure this? And the reason you're seeing this move now of Ministry of Health working with other stakeholders is even at central government. What happens since 2019, the president put in place something called the executive order. If you all recall what we call the super ministry, Ministry of Interior and Coordination of National Government. So what this means is that every week, bi-weekly, there is a meeting of the PSs, meeting of the CSs of all the state departments. So for example, when we're talking about vaccine manufacturing in Kenya, it's not just about Ministry of Health alone. And that's why it's been very difficult to move the needle in a lot of projects in Kenya where we have white elephants. So you find in this instance, we need to work with the Ministry of Energy. We know that power is a huge impediment. We need to work with the Ministry of Trade and Industrialization, where all the pharma manufacturing companies actually fall. And that has been one of the biggest, I'd say, bottlenecks, because you have the pharma industry working in kind of, I won't call it being regulated, but really that they fall under Ministry of Trade and Industrialization. But then you have Ministry of Health that deals with human health, and the two of them are not talking. So if we're talking about going into human vaccine manufacturing, Ministry of Health cannot lead this by itself. Yes, it's a technical lead that brings, but you need all these other. You need Ministry of Transport. You need Ministry of Trade and Industry because of the special economic zones. Where, I mean, if we're talking about Konza Technopolis, you know, it's not under Ministry of ICT alone. So what else? Who else needs to be in this to ensure that all the key stakeholders bring our dreams to bear? So, what I was trying to, you're asking the ultimate convener. So what the ultimate convener started doing since 2019 is that there's a lot of accountability. These forums are called the National Development, you can look for them on Google, National Development Implementation Technical Committee, where all the PSs sit, and these get reports directly from the sub-county level, and this is also scaled up to the cabinet level. And so you asked, what does the word say? Yeah, so you asked, what is the government doing? The government is ensuring that there's a coordinated effort towards bringing initiatives such as this to bear and bringing all the key stakeholders on board. And Ministry of Trade and Industrialization, KEPSA falls under that. Kenya Healthcare Federation is part of the health sector board. So when issues health sector are being discussed, is KHF making sure that the health sector issues are well understood by Ministry of Trade and Industry as they come to present the issues there? And is KHF making sure that Ministry of Health and Ministry of Trade and Industry are speaking and are addressing the issues that private sector is concerned about? So again, we also have to start thinking beyond our own silo as a health sector if we really want to move things ahead. Government is doing that. Government is facilitating that. The mechanisms are there. And yeah, we're here to guide you.
Go to HPTC, Ministry of Health department, so that at least we can finish with the policy perspective before we come back to the private sector players and ask them, how can you do it? How can you help us? So Dr. Eunice, maybe from a policy perspective where you sit, the coordination, the financing, the intergovernmental, interagency, what is it that is happening, and what is it that private sector we need to be aware, or where can we plug in from HPT perspective?
So as mentioned before, there are a lot of, we need to do this in a collaborative way, beyond MOH, beyond state agencies, because each of them have a role to ensure that we have the required products. So in addition to what Dr. Njeri said, there's that need to, I think, put more effort. The discussions have started in certain aspects, but we need to build on that, even as we look at the issue of vaccine and other products being locally manufactured. Because the challenge with the silo mentality is that everyone is moving, but you're not moving in the same direction. There are things that we need other agencies or institutions to do to make it easier for us to move faster. So we need to ensure that that is coordinated from government level. Of course, even as we bring in partners and other stakeholders, we should already have a plan, a roadmap as government. So they plug in and we move in that direction. So our role as, let me say, as national government, regardless of what ministries, to guide, give strategic direction and coordinate whichever partners we need to engage in. Thank you.
Thank you, Daktari. And before we go to Kapi, I want to ask Dr. Theory. Yesterday, one of the things that came up is the mindset that made locally is inferior, or really you can't use, or if I use locally, then there's a problem with perception. So from where you sit as a practitioner, are your practitioners ready to use locally made? And if that is the case, what does it take? What are your expectations? Because now we need to build Kenya, buy Kenya. Well, buy Kenya, build Kenya.
I think we are willing to use them and buy them. Given that, especially I talk about the field, it's a it's a field that moves quite fast in terms of innovation. So that particular kind of doctors are willing to try locally made and manufactured products. My thoughts would be that we need to involve them in the manufacturing of these things. And how do we do that? Our training is basically clinical trainings directed towards clinical specialities. We need to have, and I hate using this policy, that says we need to have training lines. You train as a medical doctor, you train as a nurse, you train as a clinical officer, as a dentist, and we create a line for you. After school, where do you go? Do you go slightly into engineering a little? Do you go to marketing? Do you go to operations? So that in the Vision 2030 blueprint, when those things are coming together, they're coming together with the technical people who can do whatever that blueprint is able wants to do. And the other thing that often happens is disruptions in this timeline. One being our election cycles. We don't have consistency in terms of the economic space that we operate in. There are various things that we have to account for. Elections happen. A few years after that, we must pay the people who announced our elections. In the middle of that election cycle, scandals are happening. We are restructuring KEMSA, we're restructuring another organization. After that now, people go back in the election cycle. So those disruptions not do as good. But to your question, yes, we are willing to try. And some of the products that we use are very, I'd call them very simple products to manufacture, because we're manufacturing steel for construction and other uses. And I mean, even instruments, if you have a die that is for that particular equipment, you just need the raw material, forge it, and out you go. And it will not only be consumed within the country, but also elsewhere. But the overarching thing is we must like ourselves as Kenyans first. We must like our citizens and we must like ourselves. Because if we don't do that, there is no day we will ever be selfish enough to ensure that this country goes in the right place. I've heard Daktari say the way government is talking to each other, yet there's still a lot of verticalization within the particular ministry lines. If it's finance, finance, MBA finance, like that, PhD. You go up, and you hit the ceiling on that. Health as well, and then you'll have the chief economist, the Ministry of Health, be seconded from finance as an advisor, but they do not have the they don't know how the house operates. Yes, they're in charge, but they don't know how the house operates. So, speaking to my initial point, we must train people to be so that I can know 10 years from now, I stand a good chance of being the chief economist of the Ministry of Health, and this is my mandate. It's very clear.
Wow, thank you, Dr. I will come to Willie. We told that this is possible. You know, when I started my internship, there was contract manufacturing of multinational products within the country. It's no more there. We know you guys hold a lot of patents, and now with the new innovations on COVID-19 vaccine, how can we do it locally? Tell us, including things around technology. What are you willing to do?
Thank you very much. I reiterate, Kenya can manufacture vaccines or anything whenever we want. The first question to ask ourselves is, do we really want to do it? Then, so that behaviorally, we can exhibit that desire to manufacture vaccines. Let me cite an example of how deviated from the things we want and the things we do. Okay? I personally went in search of a rabies vaccine. We all know how devastating rabies is. Okay? It is not in any government facility. We don't have it. That mindset shows you how far we are from our intentions and our realities. But coming back to the point, we can manufacture as Kenya. There are two mechanisms we can do it. One is create a hosting environment for the global leaders in the practice to come and produce here. That's the quickest. That hosting environment has to do with financial incentives, operating incentives, export capabilities, that we can do it. Now, the important thing to note is that Kenya by itself will not benefit much if it decides to manufacture vaccines for its own consumption. We are a small market from the global perspective. The global trade in pharmaceuticals and vaccines is over $1 trillion. Kenya's annual consumption is about $1 billion. We're a small market. From the population perspective, not just that, from the purchasing power perspective. So our orientation to manufacturing should gear more towards exporting. And in the exporting process, we also meet our local needs. So one point, we can manufacture through hosting of those who are already doing that. And as a CAPI chair, CAPI membership is always available at hand to engage and discuss on any potential to do that. They can do that. We can point you in the direction of, you want to talk to Pfizer? We'll bring Pfizer to the table. Do you want to talk to Sanofi? We'll bring Sanofi to the table. And we engage, and they can give specifics of what is required to be hosted in the country. Now, the second mechanism is for the country itself to say we are building it brick and mortar from the ground, which is to say we are setting up manufacturing capabilities from the skills to the equipment to the operations. Now, that again can be done. There are some limitations to it. And when we cite some of the top of the head challenges are usually power. Power is not a problem. If to be honest, if we talk with each other and be honest, we already have overcapacity in power. And I understand that KenGen has even offered to host in its geothermal area a special economic zone where they can divert the power and they sell direct to that zone at very low costs. We have that. We can start. The issue is who will be the buyer. The pharmaceutical business runs on consolidated demand. If we do not have consolidated demand, nobody will set up any manufacturing. I'm being very honest here, and I was mentioning to someone that I turned 50. Now I don't need to apologize about speaking straight. Okay? So here we have the presidential unit. We don't have finance. The government is the single biggest buyer of anything produced. If it does not pledge itself to purchase after production, nobody will take the risk. And that goes back now to the point that Fred COE mentioned, that there is no capital in the environment. Okay. It is the government to commit. During the COVID pandemic, research and development of medicines accelerated at a dizzying speed to the point that solutions were developed in 7 months. What was achieved for COVID in 7 months is more than what was achieved for HIV in 20 years. Reason? The government committed itself. The US government went to the manufacturers, the EU government went to the manufacturers and pledged that they will buy whatever comes out. And in fact, the US government granted financial capacity to the companies so that the risking of the innovations and moving forward was cut out. The government of Kenya never puts its money where its mouth is. Okay? If it was to commit money and say, we will buy everything coming out of this zone, it is responsible for 70% of the procurement of medicines. So who will come and invest targeting that the other 30%? And while the government doesn't do that, we are very exposed. Okay. CAPI member companies are mandated to comply with the WHO requirement to assess the pharmaceutical security of any market they operate in. And I can tell you, pharmaceutical security is less than 6 months. If there is any disruption globally in the flow of medicine, we will run dry in 6 months. So the pressure to manufacture for ourselves needs to happen so that we resolve a lot of issues. And one of them is the manufacturing or pharmaceutical security. We don't have that. And finally, I will answer the same question by asking, which model do we want to pursue? If we are going to manufacture vaccines or any other pharmaceuticals, and when we talk of manufacturing vaccines, everyone thinks of COVID. Now, step out of it. There is a larger basket of vaccines that is supplied to us, and the global community will let us go on our own by 2027. Think of measles, think of rubella, think of TB, all of that we will be on our own by 2027. So the question is, which model do you want to pursue? I'll cite 2 countries. India has been manufacturing pharmaceuticals from around 1949, 1951, with a strong mentality to be independent and serve itself. It has close to 29,000 manufacturers and exports $7 billion of pharmaceuticals. At least this is as per the data I had last 2015. It's not too bad. Meanwhile, Ireland developed itself in 1992 and took a deliberate decision that they will pursue cutting-edge science so that they lead in the technological field. By 2015, exports by the top 15 companies in Ireland was 55 billion euro. And the taxes they were earning from that was sufficient to buy their own medicines for their own consumption. So do you want to pursue a mass production, or do you want to pursue technical excellence? This is what Kenya has to answer, and it's largely driven by the government. Let the government, for every discussion we hold about manufacturing, bring the Ministry of Finance. Can they pledge that they will buy? And you will trigger a lot of innovations. In fact, you will unlock the monies, the capital we bury every year into real estate and rental buildings. It's about 700 billion shillings annually. That is enough to build manufacturing capacity, but the government has to encourage that capital to flow in that direction. Sorry, I'm being a bit more radical, but thank you.
At least I can be allowed to comment on that. May I? Actually, you're right, and that's a very key challenge to government. And as I sit here, in PDU, we all oversee different ministries. So one of the ministries I oversee is also the National Treasury. The coordinating mechanisms I talked about National Treasury is part and parcel of that. But over and above that, so Buy Kenya, Build Kenya is a government-led initiative. And if government is going to do anything, it has to start at home. So one of the things government has done is that under the Buy Kenya, Build Kenya initiative, there's a huge master role, starting with the State Department, state corporations, and parastatals that has a list of all goods and services manufactured in Kenya that they are being mandated to buy. And they're actually being asked to report on a quarterly basis how much of your procurement is from local manufacturers. And pharma products, there's a huge list, the essential medicines list. I think you're all part and parcel of the development of the essential medicines list, which is should soon be gazetted, we hope. And that is part and parcel of what they're all being mandated to buy. Of course, there's a huge elephant in the room. We are talking about corporations that are semi-independent. They have their own procurement mechanisms. I mean, there are a lot of silos, corruption silos that need to be undone. And that is an initiative that's going on. There's a whole procurement master role for medicines that is soon to be gazetted, 2021, that has been developed, both with Ministry of Industrialization and Ministry of Health. I mean, those are steps. And this is really literally targeting government itself. Can government lead from the front, even as we are trying to tell Kenyans, buy Kenya, build Kenya? What are we doing in-house? Let me stop there.
Wow, I like that. That's the purpose of this forum, to start those kinds of conversations. Now I'd like to come to Dr. Samora. We know that the development sector, now that Kenya is an LMIC, is now moving, has an agenda of moving Kenya towards self-sufficiency. Listening to the conversations here, yes, we can. Yeah, yes, we are. Where do you see the development sector plugging in this journey to self-reliance, keeping in mind the challenges as well as the opportunities you've been hearing being discussed?
Thanks so much, Lyndon. I think very good points, very good conversations that we are having here. And so, I mean, if I go back a bit, so traditionally, what you've seen from the development partners, including UK, US, and a lot of them, has been more of grant. You know, we come in with our programs and we want to support with buying of the drugs and all that. And I think there's role for that, and that's going to continue. But what we are seeing more of is, and especially because now Kenya is a low middle income country, is the move towards, you know, how then do we support the countries to be able to take care of themselves so that, in a sense, reduce that dependency on international support. And so the thinking now is about engaging with the private sector. So the UK, for instance, has just recently signed a number of MOUs with the Kenyan government that looks at how we can support the health sector. And this includes even through trade and investment opportunities. And so looking at, you know, what opportunities exist and the challenges that are around financing is, you know, out there are a lot of people who are looking for opportunities. You know, they're ready to invest their money if they can see that that opportunity exists. So, you know, these agreements that we are signing now provide this opportunity for saying, you know, there are investors in the UK who have seen that there's a potential here. Some of these challenges that are being raised here, if those can be addressed and people start seeing that there's a market here, that they will want to invest in. So that's looking at it from an investment perspective. But there are also, you know, some of the things we've been talking about here about established, industries, established farms, British farms, UK farms. Specifically, we're talking about healthcare. That if they see that market here, they would even like to partner with local institutions. So in terms of technology transfer. So, you know, these are also questions that we're already having about, you know, colleagues from the UK asking, you know, who is it that we can partner with? Because, you know, I think the issue of cost is a significant one, right? And, you know, there's also the cost of developing these technologies. And sometimes if it's manufactured in the UK because of their standards, because of the cost of doing it, it becomes very to sell here. And, you know, then it's not very competitive. So there's a question of partnering for technology transfer. So, you know, we come and now use local resources. A good example would be, let's say if you're talking about something in the software industry. And, you know, here you can get software developers. You know, I don't know, somebody was mentioning that you can get a very good software developer here for maybe about 100,000 shillings a month. In the UK, that would be very expensive. So if then that software itself, if we can have collaboration between a UK firm and a Kenyan firm, so that instead of having that software developed in the UK, where just the cost of one person producing it is, I don't know, maybe 5 times that cost here, and you come and produce it here, that alone, just transferring that technology, would have already reduced the cost of that software by 5 times. It will be 20% of what it would have cost to come from the UK. So I think there are a lot of opportunities there, but also just seeing how do we so get that balance between continuing the support as we build the capacity to help. So there are different opportunities, including also, I think I should just mention this because we've been talking about capacity building, about partnering around then developing that capacity. So getting Kenyan professionals to access some of those farms or universities or training institutions to learn that skill that they can then come back and use. So I know a couple of options there for the development partners or the high-income countries to support. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Daktari. And that now leads us directly to Dr. Ntonjira's territory. You're an international company. Here we are talking about local manufacturing. You hear about skills transfer. And you've talked about how Philips actually has an R&D unit in Kenya. So what has your experience been running that R&D unit here? For example, what is your collaboration with academia, with government, and has that been fruitful? You also face challenges.
Thank you very much, Dr. Maran, for that question. Speaking of, let me start with the background as to why we actually set up an R&D hub in Kenya for Africa. What we look at is we have, yes, there are the global healthcare system challenges that we have, but then we have challenges that have to low middle income countries or low income countries. And what we wanted to look at is what are the health system challenges or priorities that the government has locally, and for us to develop solutions that are tailor-made towards meeting or addressing those challenges. And a lot of the work, of course, revolves around partnering with key opinion leaders within the country or within the industry to be able then to have a better feel of what the health is locally. And of course, being in Kenya, a lot of what we do here will also translate within the region because we are very similar in our healthcare systems. Of course, one of the priorities, like I said when I started, is that Philips has this commitment to, impacting 400 million lives in underserved communities per year. Yeah, and one of the ways to do that is to develop solutions that are tailor-made for our healthcare systems. Of course, I was very happy to hear what Dr. said. One of the biggest things that we look at is the market. Yeah. So we'll work with private sector, we'll work with academia, we work very closely with Amref Health Africa, we work with Aga Khan University Hospital, we look at solutions around maternal and child health, we look at the primary healthcare space, we look at actually NCDs, yeah, and in particular cardiology related issues. And one of the things that we do is partner with one, development partners, two, educational institutions, and government. Government has to strongly come in because at the end of the day, we have to align ourselves with the priorities that government has in that particular field. We will then invest heavily on pilot projects, look at develop solutions with both internal and external teams. So we have a group of scientists who are housed in Kenya, and I'm very proud to say actually they are all Kenyans, the scientists that we work with. And of course, they collaborate with other scientists in Bangalore. Of course, there are other research hubs in other parts of the world. One of the things that I must add is that, of course, beyond the pilot projects, is that one of the biggest challenges we have is upscaling. And upscaling is because sometimes you invest heavily in a particular area, in a mother and child solution, come up with a software solution to support probably, and I really liked what one of the presenters, Dr. Were, talked about, the scarcity in healthcare resources, yeah? So develop solutions that are geared towards telehealth, so that you're able to either have task shifting or provide care at a lower level of healthcare facility, but without the right resource, but of course connecting with the right specialists to look at that solution. And I'm talking about one we have called Lumify Moms. But then one of the challenges we have is we have our pilots in different parts of the country, and we present our white papers and we partner with government. But then when it comes to upscaling, the feedback you get that we do not have money to upscale, get us development partners to do this with us. Yeah, and this is it's a never-ending cycle, and so I think one of the biggest things that we need is really support from government, that when we collaborate on whether it's innovative solutions that are actually geared towards the priorities the government has, then we need to look forward at a way that the government takes it up and finds sustainable ways of maintaining whatever projects that we've worked together on, so that there isn't that over dependency on whether it's the manufacturing or OEMs like Philips or development partners, but how can then government take it up and own that solution, yeah, moving forward. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Ntontira. So now we move over to questions from the audience, both online and physically. Do you have any questions from the?
Hi, everyone, and thank you for the good presentation, all the panelists. My name is Maureen Muthinzi from Penda Health. We operate 21 medical centers within the underserved communities. So my question is directed to MOH. How will we ensure that we have done a lot of community awareness, especially because we have seen that even with the current vaccines, there's still a low uptake, and there are also myths associated with the vaccines. So are we going to take a step back and first learn and understand what does the community need? Is it that maybe people still have these myths and fears? So even if the vaccine is manufactured in Kenya, they still might have all these fears back in their mind. Then Kenya, we have invested heavily in this, and we see that maybe the project is not kicking off well, or the uptake is not being felt the way we would have wanted it. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning or afternoon. Afternoon. No, thank you very much. Really enjoyed the panel engagement. I have a question, and it touches on the Buy Kenya, Build Kenya slogan, and I'd like to frame it actually around an experience that I had, and from a development partner perspective. I'm from the UK FCDO, working for the East Africa Research and Innovation Hub, really interested in strengthening and promoting collaboration, strategic partnerships between the UK and Kenya, but also really strengthening this ecosystem so that it's more joined up and able to scale these innovations. So one of the things that we had, and we all know that COVID really galvanized us to work together, and one of the initiatives we had with the British High Commission, the UK FCDO, was something called the COVID Action. And as part of that, COVID just really brought out a lot of innovativeness in our sector, especially around the young people. So as part of that, we were able to support young people to really come together through some grants to generate local solutions, like do some 3D printing of masks or whatever, and other things like, you could look at the catalog, if you go to the website, you could see some of the things that were there, and I'd be happy to talk to people about that. One of the challenges we found, though, from our innovators is those things that they made, they could not be taken up by government. They are sitting somewhere in warehouses. Many of them, they were given grants that, they made some prototypes and then they scaled up, and then they said, we don't know where to take this, and we don't even know who to talk to. So I just want some feedback. I'd like some feedback just from the panel, from people from the private sector. Actually, everybody from the panel there could guide us on how could we do this better as development partners to be more efficient, more streamlined, so that our investments have more impact. Over.
Buy Kenya, Build Kenya, or Build Kenya by Buying Kenya starts with all of us being sensitive about our self-esteem around our identities. If you do not really have a strong self-esteem around your identity, you are shifted here and all over the place. You will never love or respect what is yours. And I usually prick people's, I make people feel the pain of it by asking, when you have a baby and you name that baby Jaden, who in your clan, in your ancestry was Jaden? In as long as you run away from your identity, you become a global commodity. You now crave acceptance by embracing other things. Start with your identity. If we build our self-esteem around our identity, we will embrace our own things. That's my contribution.
I think what I'm about to say, she'll also comment on it, yeah? As Kenyans, like I said, we don't like ourselves. And the moment we begin liking ourselves, these things will change. The other thing is, Buy Kenya, Build Kenya should not also be an excuse for us not to pursue excellence. We must pursue excellence in all we do. If I'm coming to give you a bottle of water like is before us here, it should be the same quality that's competing internationally. So we must not create those excuses. Two, government is being mentioned a lot, and I pride myself in being a consumer of their services as a citizen, yeah? And the one thing that government must do well is what links production and profit. That is marketing. Government is a horrible marketer. And the moment it's able to crack marketing, that is what does it do for us, then those problems will become less and less. The people who are doing those innovations, do they know what that particular, say, the county development plan, county integrated development plan says? Is it in line with the things that they are making? Like I mentioned, the 2030 Vision 2030 blueprint. How much are we following it? Or is it with every budget cycle we are doing something else that's totally off? We're not sticking to a plan, and that will ail us for a very long time. And that is why even upscaling of innovations like Dr. Ntonjira has said becomes difficult, because I am not sure that I am in a plan or in a pipeline that is headed somewhere. And the moment we do that, it comes to my speaks to my that point: corruption. Corruption is not only money out for a service; it is inefficiencies in the system, both in private sector and of course in public sector. The moment we have this cultural change in our citizens, half our problems will have been solved. And one of the ways of starting it is ensuring the laws that we have, efficient as we think they are, they should apply equally to everyone. So that first we can have a common place where we are starting from. And the moment that happens, then I think as a society we'll be headed somewhere. Thank you.
I want to start by asking each and every one of us here, Buy Kenya, Build Kenya. If I come to your home, your store, your fridges, your food cabinet, how many of you have Kenyan products? Starting from the basic ketchup for your fries, from your basic ice cream. Okay, ice cream is not basic. Oil. My apologies. Rice. Are we going to find Pakistani rice in your cupboard? Are we going to find rice from where? You know, I mean, at the end of the day, and I like what all the panelists are saying, we need to learn to take pride in ourselves as Kenyans. We need to learn to celebrate our successes. We need to learn to, because even as this local manufacturer is producing bottled water, if they're not able to, if many Kenyans are preferring to buy Evian because it looks posh, we see the Kardashians, that's what they take, and that's what I want to have in my home. How do you expect this local manufacturer to break even and to grow his manufacturing and reach a bigger segment of the market? So yes, there is what the government is doing, policy regulations, creating an enabling environment for investors, whether it's local investors, international investors. But what are we doing as Kenyans? You know, we keep asking, what is the government doing for me? Serikali's idea, but what are you doing as a consumer of government services, as a taxpayer, you know, to help your government actually actualize some of these things? A lot of us, especially in this room, have NHIF cover, yeah? Inpatient, outpatient, especially because you're a formal sector employee, by law you must contribute. How many of you actually know what that NHIF cover does for you? But because you have your private sector cover, you actually don't care about it. And guess what? By not caring, especially for the outpatient cover, you're enabling corruption within NHIF with either a public sector healthcare provider or a private sector healthcare provider, because they know Njeri's cover will never be used for her and her dependents. So let's give this money to a certain healthcare provider. So we also need to start taking responsibility in the development of our country, in development and consumption of our products and services. Because if you're doing that, then you can actually stand up and say, I'm a consumer of this. This is not good quality, because you're talking from a place of confidence, and practicality. And to go to your question, how do you ensure that there is uptake and upskill? My question is, and I like what Dr. said here, when you were doing all these innovations with all these young people, who did you partner with? Who did you talk to? At the various county levels, at the various government levels. How did you get government buy-in? And I'm talking about this from first-hand experience. There's a lot of work that I've done with lots of colleagues in my career. Most recent with World Bank, we created a joint health inspections checklist. We automated it. To do that it was painful. First of all, let me say, it's very painful work. You have to work with all the stakeholders. The government has to put some skin in the game. The government in this instance, it was a 5-year, we're working with Frank on it. It was a 5-year project. Government actually paid for healthcare workers, they paid for vehicles, and several other things that they paid for. We had to come up with an agreement and a joint budget. So it's painful work. You have to look for champions both within your sector, your stakeholders, and within government who will help you push this. And you have to be willing to walk the journey. It's a long journey. So doing this over 1 year and saying, okay, now we have these innovators, nobody's taking up. How much effort have you actually put, whether it's in government or private sector, to ensure that this is actually taken up? So I'm actually giving a challenge to all of you. And just in case I don't get stuck again, I know all of us were very keen on listening to the president's speech on lifting the curfew. That's all we had. You see, my fellow doctor is asking me, so I want to ask all the healthcare workers here, did you actually listen to the impact that the government has had in terms of investments in the health sector over the last 10 years? In terms of investment, today we talked about human resources for health, a key investment in the health sector. Just specifically for government, doctors, healthcare workers, there's been almost 100% increment in numbers trained, numbers recruited. And when we look at level 2 healthcare facilities, that is where the largest investment has been. We're talking about vaccine. It's a preventable intervention for preventable diseases. That is where the intervention is. But I am sure none of us had that. So another challenge, go read that speech and start patting yourself on the back as Kenyans. Yeah, thank you.
I just want to add one very quickly. One of the other areas you need to look at is partnerships. Yeah, and partnerships through the various foundations that are available. I think I'll speak for Philips Foundation. We have really invested in a lot of social entrepreneurs in the country. I'm glad to see someone here from Penda Health. We're already doing work with Penda Health. And of course, this goes to the fact that we are happy to invest in primary healthcare. So please leverage on partnerships that are currently existing or with organizations that can support you. Don't think of reinventing the wheel on your own. Yeah, get a big brother who can support you, walk the journey with you, invest in what you're doing, and then moving forward, you'll see. Of course, a lot of it also takes a lot of patience. Yeah, you're not successful from the first time you tried. Yeah, it takes a couple of times of trying, and then you're able to actually meet the vision that you had initially worked towards. So please look at partnerships. get support from the bigger organizations that currently exist that are investing in the area of work that you're involved in.
Thank you.
Can I just say something very quickly?
Yes, and then we'll go to Dr. Sioe.
Yes, that's fine. So on this Buy Kenya, Build Kenya thing, so that we don't bash Kenyans too much, I think there's also something to be said. And Dr. has pointed on corruption and on this quality assurance bit. I think because it's good that we have Dr. Sioe representing the regulatory authorities here, because I think there are a lot of concerns about the quality assurance of some of these things, and to what extent that sort of KEBS rubber stamp. Actually, I'm just talking KEB, but I'm sure we can't KEBS, the Bureau of Standards, and I'm sure we can talk about the approval from other regulatory authorities as well. To what extent that actually is valid, and how many of those just buy, but actually the products that we are buying don't really pass that quality standard. So I think everybody has some work to do, definitely as Kenyans, but we also need to have that assurance that what we are getting is actually safe enough for us. Thank you.
Dr. Sioe?
Thank you, Dr. Nyanita. I think I concur with what they've all said. And what I wanted to say is that, regulatory authorities, people talk about quality assurance and which is very important because a product has to have certain standards for it to be acceptable. But the question is, how much do we invest in these regulatory authorities? Kenya Bureau, Farmers Board, which regulatory authority? If you look at, and I think Dr. Nyalita, you are aware, the investments that go, what we require for us to function properly is very expensive, but we are not given an allocation. It's the fees you pay. And when we want to raise fees, you will go to court to stop us from. Then you may find that we have to rely on other agencies being innovative. We go for reliance. Like for vaccines, we've done what is called reliance for us to be able to pass some of the vaccines to be in the market. So basically, I would also want that we look at what do we invest in the regulatory authorities, because the investment is almost zero. And then we are only remembered when something goes bad. But when everything else is good, nobody thinks about us. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. That was very powerful. We have someone online, I think it was Onyango Otieno. Onyango Otieno, you may ask your question.
Hello, how are you, everybody? Can you hear me?
Very well.
Yes, my name is Onyango Otieno from Pract Health Consulting in Pharma, and this is very exciting discussion that we're having here. Talking of local manufacturing for vaccines and talking of local manufacturing for vaccines and other early products, I think I like the bit about achieving scale and also meeting quality standards. Looking at Konza Technopolis, what opportunities are there for local startups, local biotech startups, to partner with global players like Pfizer, Serena is here, you can tell us, Philips, or Moderna, these big corporates. Can we use Konza Technopolis as an incubator, a hub, where we can actually promote local startups, biotech startups, because we have local expertise anyway, to partner with these global corporates through joint ventures and other types of partnerships? That's my question, to achieve scale and also to meet quality standards. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that will go to
I can pick that question.
And maybe
Yes. I would say I didn't get the full scope of the question, but I think I get the context of the question. What will it take for a global player to partner in a place like the Konza Techno City? First of all, the rule of engagement will be important. What is the partnership rule that we have to follow? We have experience with this. Member companies of CAPI, I can cite Pfizer, I can cite Sanofi, I can cite GSK. They've partnered globally to transfer technology. South Africa has been very successful in attracting technology transfer. And the flavors they offer is they have a very vibrant market, which is driven by the government purchases. Second, they have a very predictable investment environment. You do not have anyone walking around looking for 10%. We all know that this is a problem. So if we get this out of the way, we can invest. The third one is the local capacity to feed into this type of high-tech industries. We pride ourselves in having a lot of manpower, but let us open 10 vaccine manufacturing companies, and all of a sudden we will realize we do not have scientists on that scale. So our universities also have to be brought along to retool their training to orient to industry. And finally, would Konza be the right location, or Konza Technopole be the right place? I don't know, but I would speculate that the government needs to consider another park for the life sciences, because the life sciences park, the design is very different from the Konza Techno. Importantly, there must be supply of clean, good quality water. That's a major factor in driving the pharma operations. And also within a vicinity that has a critical mass of scientists and enablers. All of those things I have narrated, we can achieve. There's nothing new that we have to find from under the sky. The CAPI member companies are willing to engage in that conversation. And I'm very proud when I'm representing the CAPI membership, because they do not shy away from participating and committing. As a matter of fact, if CAPI membership uprooted their presence in the vaccines capacity in the country, the Ministry of Health will probably crumble. We deliver a lot in sense of partnerships. So, and we still stay committed to do that. If we do it at Konza, or if the government develops another techno park that orients to the pharma industry, the CAPI membership can always structure and participate in that kind of direction. I hope I have addressed the question.
Yeah, okay. Do you want to add on?
Well, I don't have too much to add because Philips is not involved in vaccine production, but just speaking to whether we can have local production of any other medical solutions. I think one of the biggest areas to look at is, do we have a market big enough, yeah, to be able to serve whatever is being produced locally? We don't. Unfortunately, that's a simple answer to that question.
Great. And also I want to provide an opportunity for FCDO. If we partner with CACHF, then we'll be able to, point you in the right direction, bring the right stakeholders on board, because we cut across. But more important is that these innovators need to be told, by the time you start making something, do your study properly and do it right. It's not just a must, it's got standards. So what are the standards as far as Kenya Bureau of Standards is concerned? What else is involved in that process? You have to register them with Pharmacy Emporiums Board. Those are the small things that you need to do. You have to plug onto the Ministry of Industrialization. Can invest, will tell us what it takes, and stuff like that. So it's just a matter of copy and paste. There are regulations, and it's a regulated environment. So at the worst, at the inception stage, come to us at Kenya Healthcare Federation. We will point you to the right direction. We will be able to walk the journey. We're very proud of innovators, and we are very happy to partner with you so that we can actually, help them walk the journey and walk them the journey right first time. And then also the issue of scaling up and commercialization. I think we had Bill Grow here, and Bill Grow is also funding those small startup innovators and stuff like that, but also do it right from the beginning and understand the process right to the market level, so that you don't just, they're sitting there for a reason, because they don't meet the standards, and hence they're useless, so to speak. So we need to avoid those kind of failing as you start off. So, Dr. Barani, I think you can.
Yes, just quickly, there are a number of comments that have come online, so just to read them, go through them very quickly. We have one from Mangutha Gitangu. Thank you, Dr. Njeri, for providing clarity in how the dots are connected, the answers to, I think, the first question you asked. Then from Onyango Cheno, I think he also spoke, saying pursuing technical excellence in vaccine manufacturing locally is possible since we have local expertise in the form of biotechnologists, microbiologists, systems biologists. Then we also have a question actually from Wangeshi, which I believe was actually answered during the course of the conversation. Oral healthcare is an arm of healthcare that is neglected most often than not. How can we ensure that we have a more inclusive approach in improving infrastructure, especially in the public sector? Is PPP a pathway to improvement? And I believe we had touched something similar to this yesterday, and it has also been touched in one of the answers you gave. But if you have a comment.
I think the biggest challenge in oral healthcare delivery, one is the training of the specialist. It costs more to train a dentist on average than a medical doctor. And the output is in the numbers you had, 1,426 of them, less than 10 in every county. That's one. Two, the equipment that is used is also quite expensive. So how do we reduce this cost? One, we need to zero rate the taxes that medical products are getting. And once we do this, I think that will be one of the biggest cost reduction points. The medical equipment services scheme that government has been doing should also give special consideration to oral and dental services, whereby we have provision of dental units, and of course, in that lease program that is there, that will be one of the ways in which we ensure that the Kenyans get delivery of these services. Three, at level 1 and level 2 facilities, where a lot of preventive and promotive oral health care is practiced, we have community oral health officers. So this is usually a challenge within the Council of Governors, where they will issue a job advert saying or thinking they want a dentist, but they will write down a dental technologist, community oral health officers, and seldom will they have a right dentist. So if we are able to focus on level 1 and level 2, that is preventive and promotive health, let us have our community oral health officers there, so that as we cascade management, now coming up to level 3 and level 4, as per the KMPDC categorization of facilities, then we start having dentists in those facilities. And now the way to our county referral hospitals, and in level 6, we start having specialists. That way we will be able to see that healthcare is delivered. And then fifth, we keep on saying we don't have doctors, we don't have dentists in public service yet. About 3,000 medical doctors, and about I think 150 towards 200 dental surgeons are out there trying to make a living. How do we absorb these people into public service? And even if it's first of all on a contract basis, as long as we're having delivery of services, that is a first starting point. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think then the last comment, I'm not sure if I've ready, but even as we discuss our preference for foreign, what role does quality play in that choice and preference, and what can be done? And I believe to some extent it was answered adequately before.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Marani. So we go to the quick fire, your parting shot. So we will start with Serene.
Thank you. And I reiterate the importance of such fora, so that we always remind ourselves of how far we are and how far we need to go. I remind us again, we can manufacture anything if we want, anything. It's a factor of the conditions and believing in ourselves. And I would say, let's address some of the challenges that have been mentioned. Dr. Sioi has mentioned lack of clear guidelines. We want to manufacture, then let's draft clear guidelines and follow them. The second one is, I would advise that we don't just wait to manufacture, let's participate in the value chain. There are certain areas in the value chain we can already insert ourselves in. Can we partner in the clinical trials? Can we partner in the research phases of these vaccines? We become integrated into the value chain. We will gain, not just monetarily, but also technology transfer. We don't wait until we switch on the plant. We can still participate. The third one is how do we mobilize capital, and we leave it to government to create policies, incentives, and directional pressures that move money into manufacturing, and especially if we want vaccines. And I highlight that we are talking about COVID now. That's a small baby. By 2027, when we have to take care of all our vaccine needs, we will not sneeze, we will be in a cough. So we need to pay attention to that. And ultimately, let's all collaborate. Building Kenya means listening to you and doing what we are saying, and we move forward together. The spirit is there, we can do it. The skill is there, we can do it. The resources are there, we can do it. The problem that we need to address is there, we can do it. And from the CAPI perspective, we are ready, we've demonstrated in the past, and we're going into the future. We're willing to support in any way in a structured manner. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Dr. Theory?
In perhaps 2.5 minutes, what I think is our way forward is we need to improve the quality of our citizens, the citizenry that is in the country. And it's in how we behave as Kenyans. If we are able to change that, because the average Kenyan is not lazy. If they're given an enabling environment, both by other Kenyans, and of course, we are mentioning government a lot, then that will be our starting point. Two, we need to integrate how we look at things, especially as the healthcare industry. We must work talking with other sectors of the economy, agriculture, finance, security, infrastructure. We must talk with those sectors, because 2020, what it showed us is, one, we are not food secure. In these innovations we are doing, are we having that in mind? By 2030, the people who feed us around our region, Uganda, Tanzania, their populations will also have ballooned. Will they be willing to send food across the border? We were complaining we import a spatula. We also import an egg as well. So what are we doing in this regard? One of the ways, like I have been repeating here, let's like ourselves. If, for example, the border with Uganda, if you are to shut that border down in terms of what is coming in, you will be surprised. We will have shortage for a while, but on the third, fourth month, Kenyans will be up and running. Three, government is doing a good job, and we must support them in their efforts in delivering healthcare. Because what I have seen over the years is that I will pull towards my side as KDA, CAPI will pull towards their side. Maswahili wanasema mwamba ngoma uvute pande yake. So everyone is doing that, but we must again change our perspective towards what is our outcome. What do we want our outcome to be? And the moment we draw that straight line there, then we will ensure that we are operating in an integrated manner. Four, research and development. Our universities are often left behind in this area. I think only 2.3% of the budget is in our higher learning institutions goes towards R&D. We must expand that budget, and we must build capacity, especially facility-wise, for them to help the sector. And then my last point is, let us tap on the expertise that is available to us. Professional associations are the first place you can go to, and they are more than willing to ensure that you get this expertise from the membership. Kenya Dental Association has been a big support and proponent of this, and we always remain willing to be called upon. Of course, with our sister organization, KMA, PSKI, and of course the subspecialties therein, we have seen this being useful, especially in terms of policy. The National Assembly has often called on us, MOH, and other bodies. And the last point, we must decide what we want our economy to be. The capital in the economy, how do we want it to behave? Everyone is complaining, upscaling, and then just getting into that space. How do we want the capital that we have to behave? And we must decide whether we want this economy to be pro-agrarian, and the benefits of that come into healthcare, or we specialize in healthcare and the benefits of that go into other sectors, or do we become very good at education such that the benefits of that also come into other sectors? We are the 10th, I think, in the order of medical tourism, we are number 10. So it means there's something that's good that is happening here. So if we're able again to tap on that, we will have something good going on for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr.
Okay, I have 2 points as we close. One is we need to keep with the partnerships and the collaborations. Just like the body has many parts. Some may look insignificant, like teeth. Many people don't think about teeth, but you need teeth to have good nutrition. And some may be invisible to the eye, but when they are not working well, then the whole body does not function. So we need to ensure that we partner and collaborate. Every person brings their expertise and we are able to move forward as a country. Number 2, we need to actualize what we have documented. We have good policies. There are countries who pick Kenyan documents and implement as they are, but in Kenya, they're on the shelf. So we need to move to the step of being practical with the theory we have developed. And I think we will move far as a country.
Wow, thank you. Dr. Sioi?
Thank you. I think Katito has said what I wanted to say. We need, the policies are there. We need to encourage a lot of innovation and commercialize those innovations by executing the policies. Look at Safaricom, M-Pesa, what happened? It's a major contributor of our GDP, and that's just one innovation which has been commercialized. We are capable of doing so many innovations and commercializing them, and we'll be a rich country. So we don't need to go outside. That's all I have to say.
Asante sana, Daktari. Samora?
Yeah, thanks. So first, just to start by saying a big thank you for the organizers of this summit. I think the conversation is very topical. These are the kind of issues that we need to be having, kind of discussions that we need to be having around this time. And also just to add that, in our context, actually, for those of us who are old enough, a lot of this is not necessarily new, right? We are talking about going back where we used to be. And so, there's an opportunity there before we lose thread of everything to say, actually, we used to be here, what did we drop? And so how do we get back there? And as speaking from the development partners perspective is saying, Kenya as a country has made a lot of progress on health. A lot of our health indicators have made a lot of progress. But then if you dig deep, if you scratch below the surface, a lot of that progress is actually underpinned by development support, which is risky given what we've seen in the past 1 year. And as Kenya is growing the economy, now LMIC, and we're hoping to even grow further. And what we've seen as pandemics like COVID take really hit the economies of our countries, and people start looking inward and not outward. We need to start thinking about the future where this is not just going to be there. This kind of support that we've been relying on for this long that has really underpinned the progress that we've seen in our healthcare system. But having said that, the development partners know that they've invested a lot. We've invested a lot in this, and we don't want to see it drop. So we are very keen to work together to make sure that even as our support goes down, that the progress that has been made is not lost. And so, all these things we've talked about, how do we continue working together at policy level, recognizing that there are, because of resource endowment, maybe some of these countries have better, clearly technologically more advanced, and what can we learn from that? What can we learn even just from the policy environment? Dr. Sioi here is talking about the challenges of the regulatory environment. What can PPB learn from the regulatory environment in some of these other jurisdictions, and how can that help us? So looking at it from that policy perspective, looking at it from, what are some of those interventions that we need to work on, but also not just from a development perspective, also looking at it. So moving beyond being just development partners to trade partners, there's a big role if they're thinking sustainability for the private sector. So some of these conversations we've been having here already around, technology transfer, around partnership, around just, how do we upscale some of the technology that you're already having? So I think there's a lot of opportunities. We just need to work together, as already been said. But thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you very much. Thank you to Strathmore University, Open Fences, KHF, and all the partners for convening this. It's been a very interesting forum, summit. And I just want to start by saying a lot has been asked about the government's ambition in vaccine production and manufacturing. So yes, COVID has spurred us because yes, we found ourselves as as I don't like to use the word developing countries, but as low income, low middle income countries pushed to a corner, it became a new form of discrimination by our foreign partners. and so the ambition is, I think we already have a very good example with the veterinary vaccine manufacturing. They not only feed the local market, but they actually feed the entire East and I think Southern African market. So when I learned that, I asked myself, where was health left behind? How are we left behind? So that's the ambition of the government. So it's not just about COVID. It's not that short-sighted. There is a long-term plan to make sure that we boost our human vaccine manufacturing and production to feed not only our local market, but the regional market and beyond. And that, of course, speaks to the general changes that need to happen to enable our local pharmaceutical manufacturing industry. So I wear many hats, and it allows me to look at Kenya and compare Kenya with other countries. One of the other things I do is I sit on the Global Fund Technical Review Panel. I'm a focal point for resilient and sustainable health systems for health. And basically what we do, we're a peer review panel that looks at all Global Fund applications by countries and determines whether the funding is strategically focused and financially aligned for funding. And so being in that position, I'm able to look at different countries, different jurisdictions in Africa, outside Africa, Southeast Asia, Latin America. And I keep saying, as Africans, we really do love to beat ourselves down, because I can tell you the amount of dysfunction in some of those countries is astonishing. And these are middle-income countries. The health sectors are barely functional. Their governments are barely able to hold together the policy and regulatory environment to a level where you're seeing sustained improvement in the three communicable diseases, TB, HIV, malaria. So, and I'm always like, wow, we need to start taking a step back, start looking, people say don't compare yourself to Uganda, Tanzania. Well, it is a starting point. We may be doing better in a few other things, but then also it's astonishing that we're also doing better than many other countries. So again, it's just asking ourselves, can we learn to take a step backwards? No, as Kenyans. Look at Kenya as a country. We sit on the UN Security Council. We've chaired the UN Security Council. The AU looks at Kenya as one of its key leaders. Of course, technology goes without saying. We're key leaders, Safaricom, M-Pesa, so many innovations that are happening. And I think even as we're battling with corruption, we're battling with innovation, we are battling with improving our healthcare system and delivery for Kenyans, can we also learn to take a step back and see, where is Kenya? What does Kenya mean to us? What does Kenya mean to the region? What does Kenya mean to the world? Well, we are a forerunner in many things. If you look at so many things that are happening in the world, look at Kenya's position. And so it's a challenge to each and every one of us. How best can we build our country with all the challenges? We are not unique, but I think we are way ahead of so many other countries, with and without Africa. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. And finally,
thank you very much, Dr. Unfortunately, when you come last, everything has been said. So I think for me, I just three points. Sorry if I repeat something that has already been said. One, partnerships. I think, like Dr. said, no single institution can do it alone. So we need to have a multi-sectorial approach in a lot of the challenges that we are addressing within our healthcare system. And then secondly, we need to look at a focal point being sustainability. All the solutions that we come up with must have a sustainable approach. And finally, I think we need to look at what are the advancements that the rest of the world is getting into. And for me, one of the areas of focus is digital solutions. We really need to invest in telehealth. We need to look at how telehealth can actually solve a lot of the challenges that we have: human resource challenges, data, research and development will be focused also on telehealth solutions. And a lot of what we have is already available in the market. It's already been there for many, many years, part and parcel of the healthcare system, but here we are yet to adapt it. Telehealth as actually a focal point within our healthcare system. Thank you. Oh, and thank you very much for organizing this.
Okay, so before I give it back to Marani to just do a wrap up, just to say from Kenya Healthcare Federation, I think one of the experiences we have is that we have a very good, I think Kenya, and if you look at also the level of CAPSA, because I sit in the governing council, and also the issues of health, that need to be escalated also get escalated to CAPSA, and that to the, Kenya Healthcare Federation as a sector board, which will be presenting the issues at the different levels. We have a very excellent public-private collaboration, and we must congratulate. We must appreciate that very much. We have a very open door policy, very good collaboration with the government. When the CAPSA did the private sector vaccine initiative, it was an all open. It was really something that the rest of the countries in Africa, especially, wanted to copy. And they were asking, how did you do it? How did you collaborate? My colleagues in the region were telling me that cannot happen in their countries. The stuff. And the minute we have that dialogue, a lot of things can really, explode in a very positive way to transform our economy. So it's an opportunity for us as private sector, federation, CAPSA, at different levels. And for us from Kenya Healthcare Federation, we're deliberately really driving that to ensure that these collaborations thrive, and if there's any advocacy that needs to be driven at whatever level, we're actually actively driving that, at least from where I sit. So that for us is something that I think most African countries do not have, and that's something to be proud of, and something also for us to really take advantage of and really start moving things up, or continue to move things up, but now much, much, much more faster. So, and also we sit in the SDG partnership platform, with the UN, and Philips are plugged in there, other private sector plugged in there. Again, another opportunity, because this is co-chaired by the government, the CS Health, COG, and also the UN SDG partnership platform, and a lot of activities that are coming up. And this is also where the FCD I'd want you guys also, and I think the development partners are in that platform. So let's pull these things together and really drive transformation. I know from KHF we're driving two very key initiatives, still at the baby stage, but we're starting to gain traction, to get fit, and we will get there. So thank you very much. I want to hand it over to Marani to do the final remarks, and then we'll hand it over back to Bwana MC. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Nyalita. It's a very interesting meeting we have had over the past 2 days, and we have actually ended up coming back full circle. One of the comments that we had yesterday in the panel discussion was, it's back to academia. And I remember actually to the lady from the Presidential Delivery Unit who actually asked academia, please tell us, bring your behavioral economists together to tell us why Kenyans don't buy Kenya. Yeah, and it's very interesting. Many of us have traveled outside Kenya, and what you're saying is actually true. If you compare Kenya with the rest of Africa, and actually most of the global south, Kenya is punching way, way above its weight. Michael Porter himself, about 10 years back, had a lecture here in Strasbourg. And he actually demonstrated that Kenya per capita is actually at almost at the same level as China and India when it comes to registering patents in the US. So we're not doing badly. That being said, I like the idea that we should continue holding ourselves as a people to a higher standard. We're not the only country with corruption. Some of the corruption we hear in other countries is amazing. I will not mention some countries in Africa, but they say we're not corrupt because we don't have enough money to be corrupt. Yeah? We are looking at our technology and we are saying, should we go for this immediate technology that we can build, or should we go the other way? That is the kind of conversation we should be actually having, and thank God we're having that conversation today. And I believe this being the first annual health summit. Hopefully by next year, through the collaboration between Open Fences, KHF, Strathmore University, and the government of Kenya and partner organizations, can we have a check next year and see, yes, we had this conversation last year. Are we still talking about the same things? Or has the conversation now changed a little bit? The issues of scaling up of technology, are we still talking about scaling up of innovations? Or has this conversation, because we have catalyzed the conversation ground up, have we identified the value proposition at county level that means that those innovations that were done by, were supported by FCDO have now found a local market? Are the counties, are the healthcare managers at the ground level demanding for technological solutions rather than we up here giving them technological solutions, then finding out that was not what exactly they wanted. So it's my hope that next year we're going to have a different conversation based on the outcome of this particular conversation we've had these 2 days. I'd like to thank all of you very, very much for your valuable contributions. Dr. Sioi, it was a pleasure having you here as well. And now I'd like to hand back to our Master Ceremony.